Hi guys, Claudia Boleyn here. In case my half-dead appearance hasn't already alerted you, yes, I am still sick and I'm here and I've got my dressing gown and I've got pyjama bottoms on the bottom half, so and I haven't washed my hair. So yeah. Today's video is basically I saw something on Twitter, so I get alerted to stuff on Twitter, and I'm really grateful to people that have started tagging me into things of interest on Twitter. That's really good because I can just bookmark them and react to them if you want me to, and kind of pull them apart if I think they're interesting. And something that was going around on Twitter this morning, so the words English Rose were trending today on Twitter. And it's because of an LBC caller. So LBC is a radio station, like a big London radio station, and it can have some unpleasant political opinions being aired on that place. But what it often does is it has, you get callers that call in anonymously-ish. I mean, I'm sure the radio station knows who they are, but they don't have to put their face on the screen, so they can tell you what they think about different issues, which in a democracy, it's something I'm glad that they should be able to do, but it's depressing to hear some of the things that people think. So this is something that I wanted to go through bit by bit. I'm going to link, if I can, I saw this on Twitter, so I might not be able to link it. I'm going to try and link it in the description box, but it doesn't matter because I've transcribed it anyway. And the reason I wanted to talk about this is because I feel like it represents a certain sort of new racism and new racist, and the ways in which racists in the modern world are kind of, I mean, I've said this before, but a racist, a good, not a good racist in terms of, a good person, a successful racist is someone who's not going to come out and say, I'm racist. They're not going to want to say that. They might not even be aware of their racism. They might be fully aware and covering it up. So they're going to find, this is why you get microaggressions. This is why you have stereotypes. So Meghan as the domineering, aggressive black woman stereotype is a way to, for some people, present her as other and to kind of put those kind of racial stereotypes onto her without being able to be officially called racist. You do get a vibe sometimes, but it's very hard. It means that people of colour who are the victims or people who are whistleblowers, it's very, very hard to call it out, because then this racist will just say, oh, I didn't say it because of their colour, etc. I just think this. So it's very insidious, and it's very difficult. It is difficult because there are some people who genuinely will, have opinions on people, and it will be nothing to do with race. But it's meant that racists have made this new sort of, it's incredibly frustrating, and it's gaslighting, because sometimes you absolutely know the person is a racist, but they won't say they're a racist. But you can't say they're a racist, and they're smart enough that they cover it, right? So they're a successful racist. When I say they're a good racist, they're not a good person, they're successful at it. And this was of interest because, I've met so many people like this caller. We all have here in Britain. So she is like your classic Harry and Meghan hater, and I would probably, she's what would be referred to as a Karen. I know some people don't like the term Karen because they think it's demeaning to women. I suppose it depends how it's used. I tend to think if it's used in terms of, this is a kind of entitled white woman who seems to get very angry and envious about people of colour getting rights, causing a big confrontation with service staff and thinking they're quite entitled. So it's this sort of person that I've seen be referred to as a Karen. I don't generally use the term Karen just because it's easy to be misconstrued, and I don't want to go down that road. So I try not to. I have been on YouTube too long for that. This is the sort of racist woman who is, she identifies herself as a Tory, a Conservative. She's the sort of person that you meet who wouldn't say they were racist, but would probably complain about how you don't hear an English accent anymore. That sort of person. Who might have a problem. If there's too many people of colour on the television in something, they might start to get a little bit angry about it, right? They might start to feel a little bit insecure. And again, I think a lot of racism comes from insecurity. I do think it's that. They're the sort of people who think they're so annoying because they think they're so reasonable, because they've got kind of posher voices. And I know I've got I don't know if you think I've got a posher voice. I'd probably be, for where I live, be considered to have a posher voice. But these people kind of feel like, because they live in these kind of lives and they have these voices, that they're somehow above everyone else, they might think that they'll read the tabloids, they'll act like they don't care about any, like, sort of, all this gossip and speculation, but they will consume it all and they'll believe it all. They have no critical thinking skills because it backs up their own inadequacies, essentially. They also probably think that the biggest threat to us in Britain is probably asylum seekers coming over on dinghies. They're probably that. And often they are really, really angry about trans people. Can't quite understand that one yet. I need to think about that one for longer, but that's another one. So I think it's envy, I definitely think it's that sense of, and I've talked on this channel about abuse dynamics and narcissism and The idea that a lot of hostility, I think, is based in envy and feeling like there's not enough to go around. Someone's always got to be abused. There's always got to be a hierarchy. If you believe in a hierarchy, you have to believe that in order for it to work, someone's got to be on the bottom of the hierarchy, someone's got to be at the top. So if that's your worldview, you're going to be so passionately, you know, invested in making sure that someone is beneath you in the hierarchy, right? You've got to keep boosting your status, which is why I don't agree with systems of hierarchy and privilege and things like that. I don't think they do us any good whatsoever. I think they turn us against each other. And I think often with people like this woman, you know, they say that they're fine with people of colour, but it's with that sort of caveat that as long as they know their place, if that makes sense. It's a hard thing to describe. And that is it with racism, isn't it, really? So I know some people on this channel who are new. Hello and welcome if you're new. Hope you're enjoying the channel. So I'm actually mixed race, but I'm like Meghan, I'm very light skinned. So I'm half Indian and half English. So I'm one of those people who often is privy to what these racist white people will say because they'll think I'm one of them. So I get to hear it all. So it's very interesting. It's very interesting to see what people will say when they think they are safe to say it, which is why allies are so important, because they make it so that, you know, people, you know, some of these racist white people say, oh, you know, I'm afraid to say anything anymore in case it comes across as racist. And I kind of feel like maybe I'm wrong, but maybe you should be afraid of that. Not if your good intention words, you know, if they genuinely mean well, to be taken wrongly, but I feel like we should be thinking a little about the fact that we're in a more diverse world and picking, you know, trying not to cause offence and be bigoted. That's something we should be thinking about, I think. And I think sometimes they get angry because they don't want to have to think about those things at all. Like, it actually makes them angry, and I don't really think they need to get so angry about it. Also, bizarrely, I've been talking for too long, but they also, this sort of person sees themselves, for some reason, part of their self-esteem and their worth is tied to the Britain myth, patriotism, the military, and the royal family. So they simultaneously, like, worship the royal family because it makes them feel powerful as an extension. But they also, it's so weird because if they believe in that, they also believe that they're these sort of subjects and lesser people. It's like this vicarious living through this family of mascots. But then if you actually ask them to care for the people in the family, they don't want that. They just want mascots, you know, they don't see them as human beings. And just one more thing in terms of, you know, white allies. And Harry did his interview yesterday, the ITV interview, and his 60 Minutes interview. So I watched the ITV interview, and I've got some like thoughts on that, which I'll probably share if they're relevant. You know, this isn't, I know I talk about Harry and Meghan on here, but it's not like a fan account. It's more because I feel like they've been made into these avatars, and this whole situation blowing up really, for me, represents this point in our society in Britain that we are falling apart right now. Like, we are absolutely falling apart. But something Harry talks about is, you know, the idea of unconscious bias and how maybe he wasn't aware of that kind of stuff before. And I just want to say, as someone who's got, my mum is English and my dad is Indian, so when my mum and dad got together, and Harry does talk about, you know, what it's like to be a mixed couple, and obviously my mum and dad are, you know, I hope they won't kill me for saying this, they're like in their like later 50s now. My dad actually just turned 60, and actually I think my mum will kill me for saying that's her age range. Sorry, mum. But something that they faced when they were married or when they first got together was people would say to my grandma and granddad, who are white, well, my granddad's half Jewish, but, you know, white looking, and people would say to them, you know, they're kind of well-to-do friends, and just people you wouldn't expect would suddenly say things to them like, oh, don't you mind, and oh, that must be difficult. And I just got to say, my little English grandma, she's a socialist herself. She's tiny, but she's opinionated, and I have some of that in me as well. But she always used to do this amazing thing where she'd go, worried about what? Concerned about what? What might we not like? And it would really kind of throw them, because if you don't play the game anymore with the racist, because they like to do this thing where they're racist, but it's like a code, like, we all know what we're talking about, but we're not going to say it. If a white person in that system turns around to them and says, why would we be worried? What's the concern? Why would this be difficult for us? What do you mean? They shut up really fast because it shows them up and they think, oh dear. So my grandma used to do that, so that's really great. You know, so those conversations that Harry talks about, you know, like, are you okay with it? Have you thought about it? That kind of thing. You know, they're not unusual things. And I know that's a generation back because it's my mum and dad, but that is, some people are saying, oh, I don't believe him, I don't believe any of that exists. Like, it does exist. I'm a biracial person, you know, that's grown up in Britain, and it does exist. It's not as bad as it was, obviously. It's morphed slightly, but it definitely does exist. So I don't like people gaslighting him on that because it's quite obvious. Okay, so let's get to it. This is the LBC caller with the radio DJ, I don't know if that's what you call them, is Natasha Devon. And this is what the charming caller has to say. No matter what you say, Harry is obviously the thickest of the royal family. He's selling his family. He's thrown his family under a bus. Meghan is completely behind this, and all he's doing this for is monetizing of something that he doesn't believe in. And I almost feel ridiculous even going through this because it's so nonsensical, but so many people just believe it because they consume the tabloids. So the thickest of the royal family, based on what? Based on what? What has? And I'm not saying any of them are we don't know how intelligent people in the family are, and also I don't really like judging people on terms of intelligence, you know. But what's William said that's so that's so intellectual, academic? What's Kate had to offer here? What's Charles said, which is so incredibly bright? You know, what's Camilla said, which is so intelligent? You know, I didn't think these people support the royal family, and I thought you wanted your royals to be quiet and, you know, not exactly opinionated and academic, right? So the real problem here is that Harry is engaging in some level in issues of politics and society. And of course that makes him thick. I don't know how that works. He's selling his family, he's throwing his family under a bus. Again, now I don't want to cast aspersions about this caller in particular, but something I've noticed, especially with all this stuff coming out about, you know, Harry being assaulted and the, you know, kind of psychological abuse in the family and the system. So many of these people, it worries me, and I wonder what they're covering up in their lives, because they've got this inbuilt, it's not normal to, when someone says something like that, your initial reaction to be, how could you talk about it? Actually think about how weird that is. Their first response is, how could you betray them by talking about it? Rather than, first of all, thinking, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry that happened to you. The first thought doesn't exist to them, and that makes me worried. Like, I know it's something that's really common here, you know. We do have that stiff upper lip kind of, don't talk about abuse, don't talk about what goes on in families, don't air your dirty laundry. But it's just it's a complete lack of empathy for any sort of victim. You know, how is the crime betraying your family for talking about how they've hurt you? And it doesn't count as a betrayal of that family to hurt somebody. You know, it's so dodgy. She also says Meghan is completely behind this, and he's doing this, he's monetizing something that he doesn't believe in. So Meghan is completely behind this, and they never back this up with anything. They just, and I want to ask, I wish the caller would have been more, you know, I want to get to the bottom of it, because sometimes you can shut racists down sometimes if you just keep asking them what do they mean. Like, if someone makes a racist joke, and you just say, you pretend you don't know it, and you just say, oh, I don't get it, could you explain it? And keep saying it. When they try and hint to you, just, no, I don't get it. What's funny? Can you explain? And then they shut up because it becomes really embarrassing for them. But essentially, she's believed the stereotype that somehow, I mean, it's sexist as well, isn't it? The idea that Meghan's come in and it's all her fault and this was her master plan. Somehow, even though we now know, and it's recorded, that Harry was already having these thoughts and issues with his family before Meghan came on the scene. But of course, she's the difficult biracial woman. Of course she is. And, you know, the monetizing of something that he doesn't believe in. And he's not monetizing something he doesn't believe in. I mean, I have my thoughts about the monarchy, and I truly do think, and I will talk about this in the future, I think it's a mistake for Harry not to be anti-monarchy, and I think he's on his way there. I don't think he's quite got there yet. I think he's somebody who's kind of accidentally uncovering these systems and these hierarchies, and I do think his natural instinct seems to be towards understanding and justice, and I do see that in him. I don't think he's quite there yet, but I think the natural progression of when you actually start thinking about this stuff is that it takes you to a point of anti-monarchy. So, you know, I think it's a mistake for him not to be anti-monarchy, but I do appreciate that when there's no difference between family and firm, it must feel different. It must feel like a betrayal of your actual, you know, if he wants any sort of family relationship, there's a sort of inherent, it's difficult. I can appreciate that, although I do hope he moves to that point, because everything he's saying makes sense until he says he's still pro monarchy. To me, I don't think it makes sense. I think it's proved itself that the system doesn't work and it hurts everybody in it. And the radio host says, and why do you care? Because you sound quite upset about that. And the caller does sound upset about it. It's like she's talking about a personal wound, you know. I think there's a lot of projection. Again, it's like when the Queen died. I think in this country, because there's such a stiff upper lip thing, and we're not encouraged to be maybe openly emotional about things, or it's considered to be silly, you know, to be like that or to be hysterical. I think then we attach feelings that we have about our own families that wouldn't be acceptable to feel, you know, like expressions of love even. We attach them to royal figures. Because if you notice, when the Queen died, some people were really reacting as if they'd lost their own grandmother because of the propaganda. But also, I do just think we are, at the moment, still in that place where a lot of people in this country feel like it's embarrassing somehow to love openly. And that's a shame. Like, it's a real shame. About being upset, she says, yeah, I am actually, yeah, because I'm a Tory supporter. I've been a royalist through and through, and I think it's absolutely disgusting how he's left his brother, Prince William, who's dutiful. This guy, Prince Harry, has came from an overprivileged family. He's had riches at his fingertips, the best education in the world, and here he is now deciding that he wants to jump ship and doesn't want to do the hard work. But he still wants to monetize off it. It's disgusting. And this manipulative so-and-so is absolutely behind all of this. And she knew exactly what she was doing from the get-go. It's so... the mental leaps of logic, I'll say, that she goes through in this argument is so revealing, and that's why I wanted to talk about it. So look, I'm a Tory supporter, I'm a royalist through and through, so it's like a status thing, right? To be pro the royal family, almost kind of like it signposts the sort of person you are, your politics. You know, that's the mark of a Tory and a good British person, and through, you know, it's a status thing. I think it's absolutely disgusting how he's left his brother, Prince William, who's dutiful. And again, I mean, luckily the radio host actually does call her out on this, but what does that mean, dutiful? Does dutiful mean to endure the abuse inflicted upon you and then take part in the abuse of other people? Does it mean to not speak? Does it mean to suffer in silence? I'm so interested by what these people mean by words like dutiful, and they use words like dignity, right? What does that actually mean? If you ask people to be more dignified, for example, which is something that, you know, these people often like to say, often it actually means just deal with it and don't talk about something if it's wrong. That's the mindset. She then says that Prince Harry has come from, she actually says he's came from, an overprivileged family with riches at his fingertips and the best education in the world. Now, I don't understand how you go from, wow, this completely overprivileged family, and then you're pro-royal. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make any sense. And now he's deciding he wants to jump ship and doesn't want to do the hard work and still wants to monetize off it. I mean, he doesn't, but these royalists think that the royals belong to them. He was just born into a system. If he wants to go and do his own thing, then that's his own business. People feel like they own him. You know, that's the worrying thing. It's like when Archie was born and the tabloids were like, oh, we deserve to see a picture. It's very, very bizarre. I mean, that's the contract, and that's, again, why I think the monarchy needs to end, because it does free members of the family. Once we stop paying for the royal family, you know, once that's taken away, we also lose our entitlement to them. There's no, not that we should be entitled anyway to their private stuff, but, you know, that argument dies. So it actually protects everyone in the family and who is born into that family in the future, because they can no longer say, you know, we're owed something. Right, and then there's that total twist at the end where suddenly it's like, is it sexism, or is it the fact that Meghan's an other and she's still a royalist, so she's still kind of like, she's got to some degree, she can't be too angry at Harry. And it reminds me, you know, I'm a Tudor obsessive, you know, when it came to Henry VIII, for example, whenever he did something that was dodgy, it would often get blamed on the wife he had at the time or the advisors he had at the time, because royalists still believe that the royals are inherently superior, you know, chosen by God to lead us and to rule. So maybe it's easier to deflect onto Meghan, but suddenly it goes into, and this manipulative so-and-so is absolutely behind all of this, and she knew exactly what she was doing from the get-go. This sounds like every abusive, like, oh my gosh, so many, I've heard this from so many women of that generation. Oh, this manipulative so-and-so, look, oh, she knew what she was doing. And it's so, they said the same thing about Diana. It's like, no, these women did not ask to be abused. It wasn't some great scheme, because if it was a great scheme, it's gone terribly wrong, hasn't it? Like, if you were scheming, like, for a great scheme, think about it, you would be doing things that would endear you to the public, right? So you wouldn't be speaking about social injustice, you wouldn't be asking these questions. It doesn't make sense, and they know it doesn't make sense. Right, so the radio host then says, it's interesting that you describe them as overprivileged, and yet you also describe yourself as a royalist and a supporter of the royal family. So you obviously support the hierarchy as it stands, with the royal family at the top of British society. So your emotional investment in this, is this because you think that he is undermining significantly the royal family? Do you think he has that power? I almost wish the radio host hadn't given her that. I almost wanted to just, like, keep interrogating her, not in a rude way, but just be like, and why do you think that? And this doesn't actually make sense. What makes you think that? And she says, oh, absolutely, yes, I do. And I think he's making our country look like absolute... Gosh, it's just disgusting what he's done, and I can't believe anybody is paying to watch this Netflix, paying to read this book. This guy should go and live in exile. If this was 300 years ago, I mean, this is treason, and it's laughable, but so many people think like this. Right, first of all, she later says that she's watched some of the Netflix documentary. So that's interesting. Making our country look, about this idea that letting the country down, letting the side down. Well, I don't understand why. I'm sorry, but if you believe in the system of monarchy, then you've got to accept that you don't get any choice about who kind of gets born in, and there's going to be some characters you don't like, and they're human beings, they're going to do things you don't agree with, which is kind of why the monarchy doesn't make any sense. She then says this guy should go and live in exile. If this was 300 years ago, I mean, this is treason. And they really lean on this whole, like, oh, in the old days, exile and treason. They've got a real anger, like, they try and act like they're so, like, upright and, like, respectable, but they got this deep rage, like, this actual, like, a violent, aggressive sort of anger against people that they think are un-British and, ruining what I don't know, they see themselves as part of Britain. They attach themselves to it, I think, for self-esteem reasons. But really, they're not really any part of it, Nobody decides, you just ended up born here. Like, it was just an accident of birth that you ended up here. I often think that with our history as well, in terms of, like, when people go, oh, it makes you proud, our history. And it's like, well, I mean, it's more like humanity's pride, isn't it? It's not just because you ended up born here by an accident of birth doesn't mean that, it's not like your great pride, You're not a better person based on where you live, are you? You can't choose where you live. And the funniest thing is this kind of, 300 years ago, this would be treason, etc. And it's like, okay, by that logic, if you want to live 300 years ago, if this caller wants to live 300 years ago, then first of all, you are now insulting the heir's brother, so I guess you have to go to the Tower of London, and I guess you are committing treason, and also you're a woman, so probably you shouldn't vote, and you probably shouldn't have a platform, and you probably shouldn't be speaking about any of this. Actually you should probably know your place, because you're just a peasant. So if this was 300 years ago, you wouldn't be on the radio to talk about this. It's absolutely laughable, this romanticized image of the past, when it was such a good time, because we could put dissenters into prison for treason, apparently. Right, so the radio host just then says, you talk about how our country looks to the rest of the world. Are you embarrassed by the revelations? And she says, absolutely, absolutely. This guy should have done his duties. He should have fulfilled his duties as part of the royal family, like everybody else does, and got on with it. The radio host says, the revelations are about the family, though, so to a degree you're embarrassed about the mirror Harry's holding up to this institution that you have been supportive of. So you are a bit embarrassed. And then she goes, no. But she is, that's the truth of it, is that it's embarrassing to think that actual grown adults truly believed in a system that this random dysfunctional family were chosen by God and better than the rest of us and didn't have problems like the rest of us and weren't going to be traumatized and slightly messed up because the system is so unfair. They went along with this weird fairy tale and used them as mascots, and I think they are embarrassed. That's it. I think, Harry's saying actually it's a very dysfunctional family. It's not actually great in there. We're not really enjoying it. It's become messy and difficult for everybody. I think they do feel incredibly embarrassed, because it is embarrassing. I've got to be completely honest. I don't think that supporting the royal family as an adult makes any sort of logical sense. It doesn't make sense if you believe in justice, if you believe in equality, if you believe in human rights. Like, on so many levels, it doesn't make any sense. She then says, no, not at all. I'm embarrassed about him. I'm embarrassed about what he has married. I mean, look at William. He did the right thing. He married a proper English Rose who's doing exactly what she should be doing. She's being dutiful. Right. And here we go, straight to the racism. So, first of all, let's talk to humanisation. I'm embarrassed about what he has married. Now, okay, I must admit, like, in defense of the radio host, like, in the clip you can see, like, when she hears this, it's like she goes to another realm in her mind. Like, she can't quite believe it. She's gone to the astral plane. Like, she's somewhere else. She's in a whole other dimension because she can't believe what this woman's saying. But what he has married, I wish she could have said, what do you mean what he has married? William did the right thing. He married a proper English Rose. And there's the racism. So, if you were to say to her that's racist, she'd be able to go, oh, no, I just mean, an English Rose, you need to probe that. What do they mean? They'd say something, oh, with English manners, who knows our ways. And essentially it will just come down to racism. It will come down to somebody exactly like us, with the same values as us, the same history as us. Also, I gotta say, it's weird. This woman sounds like she's much older than William to me. I think she sounds older. Why does she think it's her business who William marries or who anyone else marries? I don't understand why it's anyone's business. You don't know them. Why are you dictating who these guys should marry? It's so weird. He should have married a proper English rose. That's interesting. Who's doing exactly what she should be doing. She's being dutiful. And the host says, you know, okay. She actually goes, okay, what? And then she kind of pauses because she can't believe it. The caller says she's supporting her country. And the radio host says, and how is she doing that, in your view? Just by not saying anything. This was quite well handled, actually. So this woman goes, no, not at all. I don't think it's that. I think she's fulfilling her duties. She's hardworking, like Princess Anne. And before I even got to the end of this clip, to the next bit, I paused it. Because I know for a fact that Kate has not done as many appearances as Princess Anne does. You know, Princess Anne is considered to be the hardest working royal. She does the most functions, etc., etc. And the radio host says, well, I mean, we actually discussed some statistics on this show. It was either last week or the week before, which showed that the number of royal visits that particularly William and Kate have done is actually very, very low compared to Princess Anne. They're not doing that much as compared to the more senior members of the royal family. So I just wonder what it is that Kate represents to you that Meghan doesn't. That is a good, I love that phrasing, what Kate represents to you and that Meghan doesn't. And I just want to say, like, from my own perspective, it's a self-insert thing. It's this sense of, it's almost like some of these middle-aged white women feel like they are being personally victimized by young white men that are attracted to biracial women because they feel personally, like, slighted by it. It makes them feel like their self-esteem is low. And, you know, you can't take the racism out of it because, and the sexism really, because what Kate represents and what Meghan represents, Kate doesn't say very much. I know there's different ideas about what she's like in private, etc., etc. But in terms of what she actually does say is very little. So really, that's a woman supporting a woman who doesn't have political opinions, who's very quiet, who doesn't rock the boat, compared to Meghan, who talks about social issues and actually talks about her mistreatment. It's just a ridiculous standpoint for any woman to have, really. It's internalized misogyny. We should be backing the idea that women should stand up against injustice. You know, it's ridiculous. I don't understand women who think like that. Anyway, the caller says, oh, I think Meghan is very contrived. She's very manipulative and she's got exactly what she wants. And she's trying to tear down the royal family. And now he's over there in La La Land with her. And it's just dreadful. It's just dreadful. And now they're trying to monetize off something that they don't believe in. So she's just gone back to that, you know, you give them some sort of evidence and they just don't listen to you. Like, there's no reasoning with them because they believe the tabloids. They've made up their mind about Meghan. She is an angry, biracial woman. She's not from here. She's not one of us. She's come to ruin our institutions. Thank you, tabloids, for making this such a mainstream view. You know, it's outrageous it got this far. Meghan is very contrived. She's very manipulative. She's got exactly what she wants. And this is such victim blaming. And they said this about Diana as well, and it's somehow even worse with Meghan. Why do people... It doesn't make sense. What do they think Meghan wanted? Because if this was, I'm not saying it was, say this was some plan, which it absolutely wasn't, you know, to snare a prince. Why would this be the outcome she wanted? Because it's led to a miscarriage, terrible mental health, her being the villain of the tabloid media for years, no matter what she does. It doesn't make sense. She's trying to tear down the royal family. No, she was willing to work within the royal family. And now he's over there in La La Land with her, and it's just dreadful. And again, it's that insecurity. It's that idea that, you know, oh no, she's taken our prince, even though I think he's thick and ridiculous anyway, but she's taken him. How dare that biracial woman take our white prince? Anyway, the radio host actually is pretty good here. She says, I've heard it said that Catherine picked the university she did purely because she wanted to marry William. And the woman says, yes, she changed to... And the woman agrees again. She says yes. So that's something that this woman was well aware of anyway. The radio host says, so you could, if you were differently minded, describe that as being quite manipulative and wanting to get what she wanted. So what is the fundamental difference between Kate and Meghan that you find so prominent? And the woman says, because it's quite easy. Kate hasn't destroyed our monarchy, and this woman has come in single-handedly to destroy our monarchy. And I think she just wanted to up her own career, to be quite honest. You need to, I mean, I suppose the way she says woman, the anger, the hatred in it, the othering, and this is what I mean about, like, secret racism. She talks about Meghan like she's dirt on her shoe. You know, she doesn't talk about her like a human being. That woman, the way she says it, she's come in single-handedly to destroy our monarchy. Really? Do you not think there are easier ways she could have come in and destroyed the monarchy? If she wanted to destroy the monarchy, I'm serious. Once she'd got in, all she needed to do was, like, find out what went on there, and then just break it to us, you know, just give us all the information. That's not what she's done. How easy would that be? You know? Like, that's not what she's done. It makes no sense. But it fits the stereotype, doesn't it? You know, this difficult biracial woman. She's trying to ruin our institutions with her exotic blood. And the radio host just says, okay. And I can. The radio host just wants to. At this point, she just wants to go to bed. She's heard enough at this point. She's completely numb to it. And the woman says, and I can't believe there he was. I watched one episode of this stupid documentary. She earlier says, you know, I can't believe anyone would watch it. Why are you watching it then? Why were you watching it? And I couldn't watch anymore. It was just so cringy, and it was just awful how he was. Oh yes, I couldn't believe it. How she was about to go away with me and blah blah blah. Of course she's going to bloody go away with you. You're Prince Harry. Right, and that's the main offence, isn't it? That's the slight. It's how dare this white prince, this masculine white prince who is our property, how dare he choose this biracial woman over us? How dare he speak out about racism? He's been taken from us. This white man has been stolen. They think of him as their property. And it also, you know, of course she's going to go away with you, you're Prince Harry. I mean, I've said this before about, you know, some of the men commenting on Meghan, but I think it's also very true of a lot of the women, the women that comment on this. I think there is a sort of desire for Harry in a weird way. I do honestly feel like that. I think that's it. I think there's a strange desire that they don't want to admit to because it's not very proper. And I think they feel really angry, like Meghan's the other woman. Just like some of these men seem to think Harry's the other man. He should be attracted to an English rose. Look, William married an English rose. You know, obviously she sees herself as an English rose, presumably. You know, it's essentially saying, why don't they care about me? Why aren't they attracted to me? You know, why aren't I the centre of the universe? It's so ridiculous. Anyway, this is going to be longer than usual, which I did not intend, but, you know, that happens sometimes. So, love you loads. If there's something you want me to comment on, please let me know. Yeah, alright, see you really soon. Love you. Bye.